Welcome everyone for the monthly technical steering committee of the open source project EVerest. We have some interesting updates for you. The big code donation from Pionix from last month is almost completely merged in. BaseCamp, soon EVerest, is now OCR stack certified for OCLP 1.6. 2.01 was already there for a while implicitly because we know a couple of EVerest users have certified, and end of the day, you anyway have to recertify every charger. So also this is the big news. And I think then on AC, ISO 50118-20, AC bidirectional power transfer is also now merged in. And yeah, if you're interested in any details, you can take in the YouTube recording, jump forward. Before we go into all the details, we quickly have to show the antitrust policy. So there might be competitors here in the room, so please behave. But let's start with what's new. Let's recap what happened over the last weeks. There was the LF Energy Summit in Aachen. Oh, and we forgot the ICNC, probably, that also happened. So in Aachen, LF Energy had a big conference, like 360 people there. Way more EV charging related than the years before. I had the honor to do a keynote recording. It's also here available. We'll send around the slides and you can find a link, and also probably in the show notes. Hauke also did a talk from ChargeByte about energy management. We had an EVerest demo without a recording. We had an EV charging special interest group meeting. We'll show on the next slide. And at least one standard I found really interesting: IEC standards versus open source. And replace IEC also with ISO. And since that's a lot of what we're doing, it was interesting. By the end of the day, the talk just said, like, yeah, they're crazy, they're not consistent. Someone says you can't do it, others say you can do it, and the politics are already on this. And we as an industry should tell the politics, like, this is an issue for all of us. Please make the rules better. And it basically was a call for action to support the politics to take this problem seriously and push for it. Funny talk. If you know Asterix and Obelix, it will remind you of that. Have a look. And then there was also the idea, I'm currently pushing that potentially in next year's OCA Plugfest could be co-located with the LF Energy Summit. I think it would quite a lot help both communities. Then quickly, without slides, about the ICNC, the Intercharge Network Conference, big industry events like every year. We also did a talk from Pionix side about, together with Amplified, how you can build reliable, future-proof, in that case, DC charging infrastructure. Also a lot of visitors, a great industry show. And yeah, I think the slides are in the wrong order. This one, details on the EV Charging Special Interest Group face-to-face meeting we had there. There was a lot of different topics discussed. For example, the folks behind Steve have been in the room, the Steckdosenverwaltung, however, godfather of all CPMS servers. And I think they are now investing a lot in getting Steve future ready. OwnTech was there, discussed about open hardware DC power supplies, super funny. Or maybe you want to do a joint hackathon in the future. Then others, not EV charging direct related, but let's say behind the meter projects, discussed maybe merging their special interest group with ours. So maybe this will be extended to all other behind the meter things like energy optimization. Then there was a lot of discussion about the Mercury organization. This is kind of a CPO alliance on defining standards and what is a good charging station. Yes, they require OCPP, but also other things. We try to get more engaged with them. Then there's people now driving a meta integration with EVerest, or let's say with libOCP at least, we just learned today. And in general, we're now looking for partners to do better meta integration with EVerest. We think that will be quite a thing for the future for energy, for local energy management and households. And the second protocol, I think more Dutch one, was S2. And there's also some folks who have interest to maybe integrating that. So quite a few different discussions there, a lot of interest, squeezed room. Then jumping back to this slide, I had that as part of my keynote. I just collected some statistics about how EVerest is growing, and this slide found it so juicy. I really want to share it. The overall value of all open source created in LF Energy is around $850 million, and EVerest alone is 480 of that. So EVerest is like 50% more than all the other 5 projects together. So EVerest is really, really kicking off. For reference, the Linux kernel is at 1.2 billion. The biggest project ever is Kubernetes with 4.5 billion. So EVerest ranks now 30 in the 900 projects. So we can really be proud of all of us, what we created here together. And to all the data I gathered so far of the charger installation base, we know in a log plot, it really looks like we will reach world domination in 2 years. I assume it will flatten out the EVerest growth. It should so, but I think we're doing quite well. So much about that. EV charging special interest groups. Robert, you want to say something about that from yesterday?
Yep. Not a super long call. Basically updates from EVerest. The team from C3NOS is at a move in America, so they were not able to join. And we basically picked up where you guys left at the face-to-face meeting on extending the SIG. And the first projects that will join is Open Leader and HiFei. Jurila will present. No, Jurila. Well, I will forget her name. Aril will present next time both projects, and then we'll add the group as well, and then we will reach out to Flex Measures and Oris because they seem to be the ones closest to what we are doing, and then hopefully they will join in the next couple of months, and then slowly we will start adding more and more of the projects that might fit the same category. All the flexibility behind the meter is basically what we're looking at.
Cool, thanks a lot. And then hopefully we get more of those things also integrated with EVerest. I think that will also help everyone. BaseCamp migration. I think this is on Pete.
Yes. We can go to the next slide. I think it makes sense to provide a little bit of an update because the Pionix team was quite busy with working on migration of BaseCamp into the open source repositories, and we are quite far, I would say. We have completed the integration of all the hardware drivers we had in BaseCamp. So there are a couple of new DC power supply modules, isolation monitor, power meters available. Also, all the bring up modules that we presented the last time have been made available. We had to port some like helper libraries that were used in BaseCamp that we also needed to port over and adjust a couple of things for those. And we also spent some time on refactoring that EVerest core lib directory to separate this a little bit better and make that and clean this up a little bit also with all the new libs that have been coming in. Right now, we are working on the migration of the documentation. There will be, basically a complete new structure of the documentation that follows the Taxis format, which separates documentation into 4 parts: how-to guides, tutorials, reference, and explanation. And all the existing documentation will be sorted into these 4 categories, and everything that was part of the BaseCamp documentation will also be sorted in like this. And we are also working on creating some more, like adjusting the entry point of the documentation a little bit. It will probably also touch some documentation that we have in the README and EVerest core. And in general, not sure if everybody noticed, but we are trying to move more and more things into EVerest core that are not must not necessarily be in some other repositories, because we ended up having quite some repositories, and that's not that easy to keep all the repositories up to date. And also for the documentation, we had that in a separate EVerest repository, and we will move all the documentation into EVerest core docs so that you can also make changes to modules and then adjust the documentation at the same time. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and then our system module is also still missing because it requires a couple of dependencies that we don't have in our CI images. It's, I think, mainly about SD bus, and that is not available in Debian 12, so that we decided to move that all the CI images to Debian 13, and this also comes with a lot of dependency and package updates. So we're working.
Thanks a lot. EVerest framework updates. I guess it's again on you.
Yes, not that much has been going on there. There was a pull request from Quello to add support for RCP exceptions that has been merged, and there are two, I would say, larger pull requests still up, and we actually need some time to further investigate and test those. They are some nice improvements. Yeah, but we were quite busy the last month with doing some other things. So yeah, we still plan to finish these off at some point, but yeah, they are still open at the moment.
Okay, energy management and grid integration.
Yep. Only thing that was worth mentioning here was that we added a new interface to EVerest that allows you to derate the power and the current on the DC side of a power supply. It's provided by the EVSE manager so that it adjusts the limits on the DC side that it sends to the DC power supply. That was a request from a project that we had to basically control the power. All the energy management that we have in EVerest so far was applying limits only on the AC side, also on the AC side of the DC power supply, and this allows you to do, for example, temperature derating also on the DC side. And then, yeah, the pull request from ChargeByte for adding the new JSON RPC API module is still up, and we plan to have a dedicated discussion with ChargeByte about this to move on with this. And in general, we have been working on quite some concepts on how to move on with the bidirectional and DER integration. So all this -20 and 2.1 stuff that is coming up, it really requires some planning and some thought to properly integrate this into what we currently have in EVerest. And yeah, we spent some time on that, some planning and playing around with all the use cases. And yeah, I think we have some good results to be able to actually get started with this hopefully soon.
And okay, back to the cloud, so OCPP.
Yes, you mentioned it in the beginning. We have the certification, or the certificate has been issued, I think, already for Pionix for the certification of the BaseCamp implementation for OCPP 1.6. It's essentially now open source. So it is open source right now, but we still got the certificate for BaseCamp. We are talking to the OCA if we can change it. But yeah, we can say that the open source software stack is OCA certified. And for 1.6 with all the feature profiles and the security additions, and I looked it up. There are not that many software stacks certified, but there are actually only a few charging stations that actually did the full certification plus security, and we are the only software stack that has all of that covered so far for 1.6. Yeah, and on that list we have a couple of minor things that we have fixed. I think new features are not part of that, except for the last one. For OCPP 2.1, pull request has been merged, and the other things were probably minor fixes to either 1.6 or also 1 and 2.1.
Back to the car side.
That's Moritz, I think.
Yes, sure, I can take that. So a lot of stuff since the last release has been done for the car communication. In EVerest Core, there's an IEC requirement that's not in the ISO directly, which when the vehicle lowers its limit to below the current charging voltage, that an emergency shutdown shall be triggered. This was integrated then in the -2 module, the EVS EV2G. The offered service for the certificates was sort of mishandled, got lost along the way. Some cleanup was done there. In the AT simulator, thanks to C++ silently casting stuff away, there was an intermediate function taking floating point values and converting them to int and then passing them back to where they're handled as floating point. It's just a simulator, but that was very unfortunate. Then a nice new feature is the ISO 15118_VAS interface for supplying from a separate module the value-added services, which the V2G modules will then offer to the vehicle. This was also added to the Pi EV Joseph to handle those as well. So value-added services can now be done out of the box. I think also a module was added for that. I'm not sure if it was already merged. And then the very important change is the finalization of the -20 AC support. So that is before that was just the DC flow which was correct. Now the AC has all the error handling and everything, and if I understand correctly, also the bidirectional charging for that. The same in the LibISO, you'll see the same remark there, the 119 regarding the AC support, and there was also a fix for the unfortunate situation when multiple SDP requests came in that they spawned separate servers. So now if a server is active, it'll just stick with that one because obviously we can't do 2 charging sessions at the same time anyway. Still, as always, mentioned for the EV implementation as a project, and there's ongoing stuff in the LibISO for the messaging and that. Departure time handling, there's a new pull request for that, which is still under review. And what we didn't mention here this time, there's still ongoing work on the MCS, the megawatt charging. There are 3 branches for that in the libOCPP, in the libISO, and then the EVerest Core, which are being cleaned up right now. The changes are not big, but it adds the services and basically the services and some handling to avoid running Slack and things like that. Keeps it pretty much the operation the way the EVSE manager has been working, but just enables this sort of special mode. The pull request should be ready in about a week or 2 for that and ready for review. And another mention, still looking for helpers to integrate GBT and Xiaoji library.
One question. I think the VDV261 for the buses, is this also like the value-added services things? I think there was some work I heard on that.
That's correct.
It uses the value-added services feature of ISO 15118-2 as far as I know, and it's like a specification basically on how you can make use of VAS with a specific use case, if I understood it correctly. But that has been part of the changes as well.
Thanks. By the way, Pete, your microphone feels broken since a minute. And I think there was also a GBT Xiaoji face-to-face discussion with IO Charge at the ICNC. And I think there was now some kind of alignment and roadmap things happening. Let's see if we can hear Pete again. Maybe he can tell more.
Is this better
yes.
now?
Oh, way better. Thanks.
Yes, the integration of Xiaoji. So what we heard is that people want to start working on the integration into EVerest. Basically, this means they will add a new module that implements the EVSE manager interface. and uses the Xiaoji library that's already part of the EVerest organization. Yeah, that's what we discussed at the ICNC.
Thanks. Good. Then let's continue with the vulnerability management team. We're getting always better explaining this. Any public things you can share about the findings already, or is there any timeline to expect?
I think a couple of those things have been addressed. I don't have the complete overview, but I think not all the issues have been sorted out already. But I know that some people are working on this, and that also this report will be published at some point. But I think Kai knows more about that. I don't know the details.
Yeah, need to know basis. Okay, thanks. Monthly release notes. So we are now in September. That means we have a monthly snapshot right now, and next month will be a consolidated release. Quick heads up, we're suggesting to change this a bit, but at least this is the current agreed schedule. You want to go through the highlights here? I think everything else might be for reading later.
Yeah, let's keep it for reading. I think we mentioned the most relevant parts in the working group updates. This is a selection of new drivers and modules, the new features, and I think on the next page we have like the fixes and refactorings. So yeah, check this out, and it will be part of the release notes.
Thanks. And then we have community proposals. This is a new section. Let's try out if this works, because we have one proposal from Pionix side, we have one proposal from Sandia lab side, and we want to now present them in the recording and do all the discussion offline, so everyone can feel a bit more open to discuss. And then on the next month's TSC, we'll report what is the new status and what came out of this. So let's start with Craig. Craig, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, hi everyone. Craig Rodine. I'm a cybersecurity researcher at Sandia National Labs, focusing on the EV charging infrastructure. I've been in the business for about a decade. Previously, I was the director of standards at ChargePoint. Joined Sandia 3 years ago. I'm happy to say that through all of the changes in priority, Sandia is a government laboratory working for the Department of Energy, and there have been a lot of changes around renewable energy and things, but the cybersecurity of EV charging infrastructure continues to be a focus area and one that is well funded. So we have now support through the next 2 years to deepen our engagement on PKI, and all of the things needed to support its use and the use of digital certificates in the EV charging infrastructure. So our goal is to help industry. I have the pleasure of being joined by Francis Rodriguez, Director of Engineering, and Oscar Marcia, CEO of our contracting company, Eonti, who are specialists in PKI. They've analyzed the ISO standards requirements and compared them to and current PKI implementations in practice as understood through actual testing they've done in various venues. And we've basically documented the shortfalls between the way things are being done and the requirements in the standard on the one hand, and what PKI should look like on the other, from an industry point of view, a PKI industry point of view. One of our initiatives is to create validation logic for the certificates in real time for use on the station, eventually in the car, but to make sure that the certificates that are being used are trustworthy all the way up the certificate chain to roots. Obviously, there's been kind of a single implementation and everybody's been using it, and we see those in the code. But in North America, there are new developments, particularly around a certificate trust list that is up and running. And so we want to be able to create the logic needed for validating certificates, no matter the configuration of the PKI. We would like to start by developing code for EVerest, and we've made some progress, and apologies to the car communications group. We meant to come around and introduce ourselves last meeting, but we couldn't make it. But anyway, we've describing the certificates in YAML files, a good old EVerest way to do everything in terms of config, which works well. And then that drives logic and basically a lot of OpenSSL calls with the parameters necessary to lint the certificates. And you have a choice of either just logging the differences and carrying on, or actually putting in an accept reject decision. You can toggle it so that if a certificate doesn't pass the lint, the charging session is rejected or the handshake is rejected or whatever in the logic. This enables both happy and sad path testing. That's something that's been missing. Yeah, there are limited cases for sad path, for instance, expired certificate, the very obvious ones, but there are lots of other conditions and configurations of certificates that are objectionable and should not be accepted. So we'll be able to test all of those out. And the roadmap and scope of our work includes extending this to -20 and to OCPP as well. In fact, there is no certificate profile currently for OCPP, so we're reaching out to OCA to see if we can contribute that as well. So just filling in a lot of the pieces that are needed to ensure the proper cybersecurity posture across the infrastructure, and we hope that this will be considered interesting and valuable to the EVerest community. Thanks. As you said, Marco, we can have discussion afterwards, and we hope to be able to contribute and work with you all.
Amazing. Thanks a lot. Let's go to the next one. With all those new changes on Pionix side and how we work and how we also worked before with BaseCamp, I think with this big merge there's now a good chance to also bring the best practices together. And Pete, I think you and some more on our side wrapped your head around how to do this. And you want to take it from here and present the suggestion?
Yes. So the following slides will be about suggestions about versioning and release management of EVerest. Currently, we have a calendar-based approach of versioning that is rather easy. We have releases every month. Every 3 months, we have a consolidated release that is stabilized. But with this versioning scheme, we are not able to signal compatibility or breaking changes. With the APIs that are now upcoming and about to be merged, semantic versioning approach makes a lot of sense, because that already tells you if you can update and if the things that have been added are backwards compatible. So they actually allow for predictable upgrades. We don't want to strictly use semantic versioning for a reason that I will explain. So the suggestion is to introduce an adapted semantic versioning for future EVerest releases with the classic semantic versioning format major, minor, patch, with major being incompatible breaking changes. On the next slide, we will have like a definition of the public API of EVerest. So we will get to it, but please stay on that slide for a second. The minor updates are backwards compatible updates of EVerest core, including new feature sets. And the different, or where we make a difference between the classic semantic versioning approach, is that we want to allow individual backward compatible changes, which could be features or fixes, even on release branches. And the reason for this is that we don't want to bring us in the situation where we need to backport small features, like make it configuration options or small things that may be required in certain projects. And we cannot do it because of the semantic versioning approach, and the customer or project needs to wait for 6 months or whatever for the next release. So we don't want to bring us in that situation, which is why we think we can also allow backports of preferably smaller features and mainly bug fixes on the patch version. If we agree on that, what is very important that we actually define what is the public API of EVerest that is referenced by the semantic versioning scheme. The suggestion is what you can see in the bullet points here. So it will be the external MQTT integration APIs that we will contribute to EVerest. Those should be the APIs that should be mainly used for the integration of EVerest on charging stations to integrate your power meter, DC power supplies, and so on. EVerest configuration files, so this could be the YAML files or SQLite files, they also would be included in the public API, because if we make breaking changes to them, that also influences applications that are installed on projects. As well as manager and module binaries and command line arguments. Usually they don't change in EVerest, but if they do, like for example, if the manager process gets a new required command line argument, then of course this is considered a breaking change. And I put a question mark behind it, but we already discussed it with Scratchbyte already, that probably the upcoming JSON RPC API is also something that we want to include in the public API of EVerest. We know that, of course, also this could be versioned separately. Lots of things could be versioned separately, even the single APIs. But what we suggest is a simple approach that helps the integrators of EVerest more than the current calendar-based versioning approach, so that they can easily identify if an upgrade is possible. And we don't want to overcomplicate things and apply different versionings or several versionings across the different APIs that exist. That's the idea. And as you probably already have mentioned, the internal EVerest interfaces and types are not considered part of the public EVerest API. So if some of the YAML-defined interfaces and types that we all use change, it could lead to a change of the public API as well. And if it does, it needs to be considered with respect to semantic versioning. But if not, then that's not part of the API that we have to. And go to the next slide, Marco. For the release management and cadence, maybe also a little bit of background. We had this calendar-based approach with basically snapshot releases every month and the stabilized release every 3 months, but especially the snapshots, it wasn't really clear what you can expect from these releases. It was also introduced basically to get started with releases and to force us a little bit into merging PRs so that PRs go into releases. Now with the stable APIs coming in, we would suggest to tag releases roughly, it's like stable releases roughly every 6 months, applying the new versioning scheme. And that we also try to professionalize more on the preparation of these releases. What we would suggest is to do a monthly release sync on the features and upcoming releases, where all the project stakeholders are included, and share what they are working on, what is upcoming, and what is planned for the next release. I think a classic release planning where at the start of the 6 months, we decide what will go in. We can briefly discuss it, but as far as I experience it, it's a project that develops quite dynamically, and it's hard to plan all the changes getting in within the next 6 months. So I think we also need to be flexible for this. And we then should suggest a feature freeze window that starts 1 month before each stable release, and the releases will be made available in EVerest Core and in Meta EVerest. So this is where we actually tag. So release maintenance. So far we do not really do backports on release branches, so we don't maintain releases. We want to encourage the community to start with this and create these stable release branches. As I said, every 6 months. These branches are available for the community to use and contribute, but as a project, we don't want to like mention that there is like ongoing maintenance or support for these release branches, like when we communicate this as a project to the outside, because it's actually nothing that we can guarantee or want to guarantee. The community can maintain these branches. Pionix will probably do this. Yeah, we hope that other stakeholders contribute to this as well. So that would include backporting of critical bug fixes to these release branches, apply security updates, and potentially also add like backwards compatible features. That's what I mentioned with yeah, backporting also smaller features as part of patch releases. Yeah, for the commercial maintenance, Pionix will offer commercial maintenance of release branches for customers, but it like depends on customer projects for how long and under which basically conditions this will be done. Our suggestion is to not declare any end of life declaration of EVerest releases because yeah, for now or right now, we simply do not know for how long these releases will be maintained, and we can't make a statement like we will maintain it for the next year or 1.5 years because we don't know if yeah, if we can agree this for certain projects. All the releases will still be publicly available. So that is the goal that we have for these branches, and they are public, and we don't need to have forks for certain projects or customers.
Yes, and also this also includes even so at least for Pionix, I can't only talk for us. When we try, whenever we're allowed to, we get funded maintenance work, that we also do this on the public side. And we assume this will work out. Then we would just ask everyone else to behave the same. Then we have good chances that the public available maintenance works sufficiently well for everyone.
There's one last slide, I think, where
yes, 1 second.
Yep. Yeah, it basically lists all kinds of preparations that need to be done for these releases, and yeah, the goal is to share this work across project stakeholders, so we can hopefully discuss it in the discussion section of this meeting and agree or start agreeing and discussing on a good format for how we can set this up. So this could potentially be coordinated through the monthly releases link, but we would like to involve the community into like contributing to the work that is required around these releases.
Thanks. So before we start into discussion, let's quickly wrap up the recording. So what's next on the agenda? I skipped all the roadmap section because that needs updating. So I think it makes no sense to show the outdated roadmap again. In principle, you know what we're working on. Upcoming events, there's a Plugfest next week in Arnhem. We will join, also I guess a lot of you will join. There's a Charn V2G festival in Berlin. I assume someone will be there. We haven't planned it yet. There's also a festival in North America. There will be the V2G Leaders Summit in Brussels. Let's say it's a lot about lobbying around charging and bidirectional, or let's say, yeah, the leaders of this industry meeting. I have a talk there, or a session panel seat. So looking forward to meet more of you there. And then I heard the planning for the Energy Dev Room in Foster in Brussels for next January. Sorry, it's 1st January. I think it's 30th January to 1st February. So it's they are already starting doing that. They will apply for it, and we assume we get the dev room again, and then there will be a lot of space to apply, submit talks and other things. And if you have any other conference we should track here, please email us or poke us. We're happy to add things. Next technical steering committee will be on October 23rd, so in 4 weeks, same time again, and shortly after on YouTube. The calendar with all the working group meetings is here. If you want to get those slides and those recordings and everything else, please subscribe to the email link list. And that's it. Let's switch to the discussion and looking forward to meet you soon.